Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at professional cameras. And not so much the cameras, but more the way that the professionals deal with their cameras. Now, unlike some fields of work, say tennis or being a cyclist, where the professionals, it looks like they've got the same racket, but it's actually a completely different racket, or it looks like they're riding the same bike that you can buy in the shops, but the bike they have is actually custom made and painted to look like the ones in the shop. Whereas with photography, what's available to amateurs and hobbyists is exactly what the pros use as well. But there's a few differences with the way that the pros set up their cameras to how amateurs and hobbyists do. So, first up is consistency. Now, I run workshops where I have a lot of hobbyists, a lot of amateurs coming along to my workshops because it's a good day out, I guess. And one of the big things I notice is a lot of them come in and they've got three different systems. They've got their street photography system, they've got their landscape system, they've got their portrait setup. So they might have a Fuji X100. Then they might have an Olympus camera for landscape, for example, or travel work, because it's got the interchangeable lenses. And then they might have a Canon 5D for their portrait and studio work. That differs a bit to pros. We tend to have a system. This is my Canon 5D. This is my Canon 5D. Got one over here, got two in a bag over there. I use a Canon 5D. That is my studio setup. Now, granted, I use a phase when we're doing big campaigns that I rent in, but that's a completely different format, and I can't afford a phase, let's be honest. So, generally speaking, we have a system and we stick to it. And not just that, but we have the same camera multiple times. Now, there's nothing more boring and depressing than buying 6 5Ds. The first one's exciting, the second one's kind of cool, and then you're just spending money on buying something you already own, which is deeply, deeply boring. It's about as exciting as buying a hard drive, but we do like to have the same camera. This means that if this one conks out, I've got this one to come in. If I'm shooting, we'd smash one, we've got spares. All of our behind the scenes shots have that continuity and consistency. Okay, the second difference between a pro's camera and an amateur's is numbering. I don't know if you can see this on here, but this one is number 1. This is actually my oldest 5D Mark II. This has got nearly 750,000 shutters on this particular shutter. It's been through a few shutters, but this is number 1. That guy there is number 3. Everything is numbered. The cameras, the flashes, the batteries, the lenses, the lens caps. If it's a piece of equipment in my studio or my kit, it is numbered. And I know for a fact that every pro does this because you need to be able to have the behind the scenes person, the assistant. If you're a wedding guy, the second photographer, come up to you and go, yeah, Speedlight 3 keeps pumping out full power at random. Don't know what's wrong with it. And then when you get home, you pull out Speedlight number 3 and you know that Speedlight 3 is the one that you need to check in at. So that's the second thing. I don't see many amateurs doing this. Battery labeling for sure, but as far as I'm concerned, once you start getting duplicates, you label them. My studio lights, my studio stands, everything, if there's more than one, it has a number on it. Now, this is perhaps something which says more about me than it does about professionals in general, but my kit is battered. Everything about it is battered. I will full on destroy a camera to get the shot. Now, I have the luxury that my income supports these cameras. If I was a cyclist and I had a £3,000 bike, I wouldn't destroy that bike. If I was a hobbyist, if I was a pro, I wouldn't care because I'd get another one. And it's a huge difference in mindset. Whenever I see people coming to workshops, they pull their camera out from a little nicely wrapped thing. It's all pristine. Whereas this one here's got a cracked screen. I'm not going to fix that because it still works. There's very little paint left on the base. There's mud on this one for some particular reason. I don't know. I've got some gaff tape holding this bit here onto this bit here. It's not a pro repair, but it does the job. And when you're using it as a tool, you stop caring about these cosmetic things. Yes, we don't smash our lenses to pieces in terms of the actual, the glass. But if you take a look at this lens here, I've got paint on the outside, obviously labeled so I can find my lens cap. There's mud on this. It's used and abused. The optics are pristine. They're clean. Apart from this filter, it's actually got paint on it as well from a job I did. But the actual optics are perfect. It is well maintained. And all of my kit is well maintained. It all gets serviced, it all gets repaired, but it gets battered. I've done a video recently where I shot in the rain for 2 hours with nothing on them, even though they're not pro weather sealed cameras. And it's all, it doesn't matter as long as we get the shot. Now, something else that I noticed, and this will be different for different types of professions. Wedding photographers, it might, no, scrap that. It applies to almost all pros. We don't have every lens. We don't have all bases covered. Because we don't need all bases covered. Now, This might sound a bit weird, but when I'm talking to hobbyists and amateurs who come on my workshops, they'll be like, yes, I've got this lens and this lens, and I've got everything from 600 to 400 millimeters, so I've got all bases covered. I don't need all bases covered because I'm a professional food photographer. I need food photography bases covered. I need my good 50 millimeter lens. I need my good 100 millimeter macro, which is extremely sharp. And I need a 40 to 50 technical lens and a 80 to 100 technical lens, so tilt shifts, ones with movements or bellow systems. That's it. I don't need the 70 to 200. I don't need the zoom lenses, 2470, 70 to 200, 1740. That stuff doesn't exist in my world. I don't need all bases covered. I don't need to be able to do anything at any given moment because I'm not a jack of all trades. I'm a professional photographer who has a profession, and my profession dictates I need certain tools. Now, I come from a wedding photography background, which is like my dark, dirty secret because professionals don't like to admit that when they work commercially. And when I was a wedding photographer, I had 1740, 70 to 200, 35, 85. Didn't need technical lenses, didn't need all these different bits in between, didn't need a 2470 because I don't agree with 2470s, but that's a different video altogether. But you need the tools that you need. You do not need everything. And I think when you're coming into being a professional, you start to think, well, I need to have this base covered, this base covered. I need to make sure I can do this, or this. You don't. You need to be able to do what you need to do and nothing else. That's it. And it's quite a weird transition going, because I came, like a lot of people do, from hobbyist, amateur, sort of, starting semi-professional to professional. When I started out, I thought I needed to be able to do everything that was thrown at me. And it turns out all you need to be able to do is your niche. So we don't have much kit in terms of the lenses and the cameras. We just have the very specific pieces that we need. If you don't need it to make money, we probably don't own it. Now, when I flung this camera in front earlier, you might have noticed it's a EOS 5D Mark II. 2008 this was made. Now, yes, I have newer cameras. I have the 5DS system and we use the phase system. But this here, up until 2 years ago, when I was still shooting big worldwide campaigns, was my camera of choice. The only reason that I upgraded to a higher resolution sensor was because it saved me time. The image quality on the 5DS is no better than the 5D Mark II. The difference is when we're doing cutouts, I can shoot 4 different items at once to be cut out. So there's some time saving, and that in turn saves me money because I don't have to pay staff to be here for as long. But apart from that, the 5D Mark II does my job perfectly. If you're a wedding photographer, probably not. If you're a sports photographer, definitely not. But one of the big differences between pros and amateurs is that we use old kit. Now, I know a particularly good still life photographer, and he shoots on a P25 Plus on a Hasselblad made in the 90s or 80s. It's old tech. He has a CCD rather than a CMOS sensor. It's 20 megapixels. He shoots big commercial work. He doesn't need a new camera. I couldn't even tell you what the latest Sony, Olympus, Nikon, I think the Canon's latest camera is the 5D Mark IV, and I think they've got a 1DX Mark II. But I wouldn't know. I couldn't tell you what the specs are because we don't need it. And this is another thing I noticed when everyone comes to my workshops, I've always got the oldest camera. Always. There was never anybody with a camera older than mine. Now, that's not to say that some photographers don't have the latest and greatest. It's also not to say that when I get a big job, I don't have the latest and greatest. When someone is paying me obscene amounts of money to be on set and there's a budget of £2,000 for camera equipment for the day, you'll believe that I will have the latest Phase 1 camera with the latest 150 megapixel back and all the broncolor lights going. However, that's not my day-to-day. I don't own that stuff. The stuff I own is to get the job done, assuming there's no additional budget for cameras. Nobody complains about my image quality. No one really notices that these are old cameras because they all look the same. The only thing is they're all covered in tape. I wish you could see the camera I'm filming on because if you think this looks battered, this one here is something special. But we use old tech. My lights are Bowens when I'm in the studio and Broncolor. The Broncolor ones are a good 20 years old. The Bowens ones probably similar. There's newer ones out. They have better specs, better, but it doesn't change the image. So we just don't waste money on these things. And a big mistake that I see a lot of new professionals or photographers looking to become professional make is that they splurge a load of money on new kit so they can be competitive, not realizing that the actual pros, not the internet YouTube pros, but the real pro photographers shooting commercials, they don't use new kit. My studio stand is 40 years old. Yes, it was given to me. I'm not old enough to have bought that. But some of my tripods in there, monopods, and my, what else? I have a huge Broncolor and Cine Steel boom arms and things. They're decades old. And there's newer ones with better specs, but I'm not going to buy them because these ones still hold a light or a camera absolutely fine. Now, I hope this video is of some interest to you and sort of understanding maybe the mindset between a professional and an amateur. There is no right or wrong. It's not me saying, oh, professionals have got it right and amateurs are idiots. Absolutely not. I've got hobbies that I do outside of photography, and I spend all the money on the kit because I enjoy it. You know, if I had 10 grand to spare, I'd go and buy some sort of niche 2003 Team Quickstep Team replica bike, and I would baby that and I'd love it. You know, all of these things. But if it was my job, I'd just ride whatever my team gave me. Photography is my job, so I use whatever I have. I don't need to have the latest and greatest because I know it makes no difference to the image that I'm taking. Now, if you enjoy having the latest and greatest and you're a hobbyist, do it. If you're trying to make money, do not do it because it will not make you any more money. If I go and buy 5 new Canon 5D Mark IVs to replace my 5D Mark II lineup, I'm not going to make any more money. My income will remain the same. My images will be the same. The only difference will be that I'll have spent probably £10,000 on a new set of cameras. Now, I'm currently running a set of videos, which are marketing videos for professionals. It's coming out in a series. It's all completely free of charge on YouTube. It's not endorsed by any companies. It's just my opinion. So if you're into that, do hit subscribe. I'm trying to get a couple of videos out each week whilst we're on lockdown because it is boring as sin. I never realised quite how much my work defined who I am until there was no work. I hope you're all keeping well, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.